Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Elizabeth Cook. We begin with that major commute disruption around the Bay Area. Chances are you were impacted by it in some way. Hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters shutting down traffic for hours. Ann Makovic has been following the very latest developments all morning long. And what's the latest?
Yeah, Liz, this all started during the morning rush hour, and luckily it is all cleared up this afternoon, but it extended for hours. Those protests, part of a planned day of economic disruption around the country, referred to as A-15. Let's begin in the East Bay. A chopper was at the scene as demonstrators took over the southbound lanes of I-880 and blocked off the 7th Street on-ramp in West Oakland. Earlier in the day, on the northbound side of 880 in Oakland, protesters were blocking traffic by chaining themselves to concrete-filled barrels, and they hung a banner that said A-15 economic blockage, free Palestine. Traffic on 880 was backed up for miles. At one point, cars started to turn around, going through an open section of the median and heading south. As you can imagine, it took crews a while to get those demonstrators free from those barrels. This is video of the CHP getting the last protester off the roadway. You see that person was handcuffed before being taken away. All northbound lanes reopened shortly after. Meantime, all lanes of the Golden Gate Bridge back open right now after pro-Palestinian protesters shut down the southbound lanes of the bridge for more than 4 hours. This also started during the busy morning commute at around 8 a.m., bringing traffic to a halt. Crews were turning around cars one by one on the northern end of all this, trying to ease the congestion. We have seen a few protesters being detained. You can see CHP officers appearing to be cuffing one person in a yellow vest there and leading several others off the bridge. The CHP says 28 protesters have been arrested. Our Wilson Walker was on the San Francisco side of that bridge.
Things back to normal almost immediately as soon as those cars were cleared from the Golden Gate Bridge. The disruption, however, a solid 5 hours.
You know, I got to pay bills, so it's tough. It's tough. Like, there's a lot of frustration. So it doesn't make me sympathetic, I can tell you that much.
Whether you were in a car, on a bike, it did not matter. You were not getting over the Golden Gate Bridge this morning. And this is what ultimately happened on the northbound side. They just started turning people around, getting them back into the city, presumably for a drive across the Bay Bridge and the Richmond-San Rafael to get to Marin. Now, we did speak with one of the organizers here. They say this was a deliberately disruptive event, of course, and there will be more.
We're going to keep pushing until people pay attention. We know from our history that people's actions work, and they won't listen to us unless we hit them where it hurts, which is in the economic region. And so we're going to keep pushing, and we're going to keep disrupting.
One interesting question coming out of this is a jurisdictional one, right? Who manages the cases that are going to come off the bridge here? Not like the Bay Bridge, pretty cut and dry. Those went to the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. Not so clear in this case with the Golden Gate Bridge and the federal authority here in the Presidio. One thing we will wait to see after yet another large-scale protest here in the Bay Area.
California Highway Patrol was actively engaged in de-escalation of multiple simultaneous protests in the Bay Area this morning. Working alongside our law enforcement partners in the Bay Area, officers worked to clear lanes as quickly as possible. Officers responded to each location and determined protesters had utilized various devices intended to impede law enforcement's ability to remove protesters. Included in these were 55-gallon drums filled with concrete and rebar. Resources from the CHP offices across the Bay Area, as well as our allied agency personnel, to include the Oakland Police Department, San Francisco Police Department, Alameda County Sheriff's Office, and Golden Gate Bridge Patrol, responded to each incident and evaluated what was needed to remove the devices to take those involved into custody. At approximately 6:15 a.m., protesters blocked northbound I-880 at Embarcadero. Officers had to contend with 8 55-gallon drums filled with cement, rebar, and heavy-duty chains attaching protesters to the drums. The first lanes were reopened at 10 o'clock a.m., with all lanes being reopened at 1:15 p.m. 7 protesters were arrested at this location. At approximately 7:55 a.m., protesters blocked the US 101 southbound on the Golden Gate Bridge. Officers had to contend with numerous vehicles chained with chains concealed with pipes connecting the drivers and passengers outside of the vehicles. All lanes were reopened at 12:15 p.m. and 26 people were arrested at this location. At approximately 8:15 a.m., protesters blocked I-880 southbound at 7th Street. The group grew to approximately 300 protesters on foot on the freeway. The first lanes were reopened at 12:30 p.m. and all lanes were reopened at 1 o'clock p.m. 5 protesters were arrested at this location. The various charges being filed are as follows: 407 PC, unlawful assembly; 409 PC, remaining at an unlawful assembly; 2800A of the Vehicle Code, refusal to comply with a lawful order; 22500K as in King of the Vehicle Code, unlawful to stop on a bridge; 148A1, resisting and delaying an officer; 21960 of the Vehicle Code, unlawful for a pedestrian to be on a freeway; 182A of the Penal Code, conspiracy to commit a crime; and 236 of the Penal Code, false imprisonment. We have reached out to the Alameda County District Attorney's Office along with the San Francisco District Attorney's Office and are working with them in order to file these charges. This was a complex operation, and the California Highway Patrol made every effort to get lanes open as quickly as possible. As calls came in for service, we deployed personnel accordingly to each event. Our disentanglement team was able to successfully defeat the intricate devices the protesters utilized, while minimizing the risk of injury to the public, the protesters themselves, along with departmental personnel. Attempting to block or shut down a freeway or a state highway to protest is unlawful, it's dangerous, and it prevents motorists from safely reaching their destinations. As necessary, the CHP will take enforcement action that includes, but is not limited to, issuing citations, impounding vehicles, arresting individuals who intentionally block traffic on a state's transportation system or pose any threat to public safety. So with that, I'll answer any questions that anybody might have.
Even the cops having problems.
I have to work for a living, so I'm out here, I can't miss work. I understand it's a very important issue and it's very sensitive, but I don't know if this is the best way to do it.
This is a major city, people trying to get to work, live their own lives. I'm very much in favor of the Palestinians, not the Hamas, but to protest like this is not helping. No.
That's the one thing I was going to follow up with is I just don't see what it's going to change.
Once again, you're getting a look inside of those barrels that we see on 880. People have chained their arms inside what looks like, you said, Reed, a large PVC pipe, some sort of a tube, and they're using various tools to deconstruct whatever this barrel is filled with and remove the debris. This is just one of what looks like could have been 5 or potentially 6 barrels that have been on the 880 with people chained to them for now well over close to 3 hours here.
What's fascinating to me is you see them having to run an extension cord to that reciprocating saw to cut the protester out of the barrel that the protester put themselves in. That's likely connected to a generator. So you see, from that cord all the way back to even get electricity in, to get the power tools, to get them out. These protesters knew that this was going to be like this, and they knew that it would back up traffic. And like the sign says, stop the world.
And this looks like the second barrel that they're removing, because if you go to the top of your screen there, you can see the imprint
of the other one.
That first barrel left. And we did see them taking away one of the protesters already, but several more protesters just sitting there chained.
And you can see in that inset box there off to the side, that is a look at the freeway and the impact to traffic for anyone heading along northbound 880. This has been out there since 6:30 this morning. We're going on to at least 3 hours of a closure on the Nimitz. Even when they get lanes open back up, this is going to take a while for things to sort of get back on track and get situated for anyone making that ride along 880. And just the ripple effect on the other roadways near here for surface streets, for 580, for Highway 13, for anyone anyone heading through that area and the backup well beyond that point. I'll tell you that there's no closures on the Bay Bridge.